Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Endless TBR. My name is Christian, and this is my YouTube channel where I love to talk about books. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to click on this video, where I'm going to talk about all of the books that I want to read in May of 2026. I have a awesome stack here that I'm really excited to get into. I feel like a broken record. I feel like I say that every single month, but it is true. It's always true. I start to plan my TBR shelf out like 3 or 4 months in advance. And so some of these books have just been sitting in that spot on my shelf for many, many months, and I'm finally getting around to picking them up. It just feels really good. And plus, it's been just an awesome year so far. I was looking back on all the books that I've read in 2026 so far, and my average ranking is like 4.25 out of 5, with a lot of books falling in that like 4 to 5 star range. It's just made me really happy how many great books I've read. I think there's only been 2 books that I've read that are like a 2 star or lower review. And even those 2 books, I still got a sense of enjoyment out of, just like a cynical sense of enjoyment. Like they were so bad that they were still entertaining. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm just really excited. I'm really happy to be reading all these books, and let's get into it. I will admit it's going to be a little bit of a uninteresting video in the fact that a lot of the books on this list I have absolutely no idea what they're going to be about. Some of them, actually most of them, I'm picking up just based off of the author alone. I try to do a thing where I don't look too far in advance as to like what the books are about. I just, I hear based off of word of mouth from other people or reviewers that I trust or friends that I'm with who just say, you have to read this book. It's really, really good. And I usually just take their word for it. And I try not to like look up what the book is about in advance so I can just be super surprised. So I'll give you a fair warning that that is coming up with quite a few of these books. So let's start with the first one that I'm reading right now. This is the only book on this list that is a carryover from my April TBR that I didn't quite get to finish, and that is The Lost Symbol by Dan Brown, book 3 in the Robert Langdon trilogy. I'm about 100 pages in, and it's been really solid so far. I'm really enjoying it. I mean, Dan Brown, everything he writes, I just enjoy. They're perfect, like, sit back, relax, sit in a hammock, or, sit outside in a lawn chair and just enjoy, like, a really exciting thriller novel. I went back and forth a lot in some of my previous videos as to whether or not I'd read this book or not. I couldn't remember because I had really clear memories of Angels and Demons and the Da Vinci Code, but when it came to The Lost Symbol, I couldn't quite remember. I think like 7 or 8 videos ago, I was like, oh yeah, I've definitely read this one. And then 2 or 3 videos, I was like, I actually don't remember if I've read this. I can say now that I definitely have at least started this book because there are certain things that are sparking memories in my brain, like the tattooed bad guy or the Institute for Noetic Sciences subplot. Like all of that is ringing in my brain. Like I remember those plot points, but the good thing is I don't remember any of the major beats. So it's very much like I'm experiencing this book for the first time, and it's been a blast so far. So I just love Dan Brown, and I've really been enjoying this series a lot. And I'm really starting to like Robert Langdon as a character even more. Like that was one of my criticisms of the first 2 books, is he didn't feel like he had a whole lot of a personality. But now as I'm getting into book number 3, I'm starting to realize like I think I was a little wrong on that. Like he's very sarcastic and just kind of he's just a cool dude. Even though he does panic sometimes in certain situations. But yeah, I'm just starting to really like Robert Langdon as a character more. And so I'm enjoying The Lost Symbol a lot. So that is the book I'm currently working on. The next 2 books are Stephen King books. If you have not seen some of my other videos, I have this goal where I'm trying to read 12 Stephen King books in 2026. Originally, the plan was to read one a month, but as everything goes in my life, my plans usually fall apart pretty quickly. So I think I read one in January, zero in February, two in March, and zero in April. So now I'm going to read 2 books to try to catch up and be 5 for 5 for May. So those 2 books are Dance Macabre, which is a 1979, I think, nonfiction book by King, where he talks about like the state of the horror genre up until that point. So really excited to get into this one because I loved his other nonfiction writing, which was the On Writing book, where he talks about like his writing history. So I'm really stoked to get into another nonfiction King book. And then we have Roadwork, which is the next in publication order after Dance Macabre that I have to read. And this is one of those books where I don't know anything about. I just picked it up because I'm like, hey, this is the next King book on my list. I haven't heard like this one being towards the top of many people's lists. I'm not entirely sure if that's accurate, but it's not one of those classics that you hear about like it in The Shining and The Stand. So I'm excited to check it out and see what I think about it, because this is one of the few Stephen King books I've read recently that I knew zero things about going in. So we'll see how Roadwork is. The next book that I'm going to be reading after that is Charlie Bone and the Blue Boa. This is a children's series by Jenny Nemo that I started up back in March. And I read the first book in March, the second book in April, and then this is book number 3 in the 8-book series. I started it as a nostalgia trip. I remember reading these books back when I was a little kid and really enjoying them. So I grabbed the box set and wanted to kind of experience them as an adult. And unfortunately, I just haven't been enjoying them a lot. I mean, they're not bad. I gave Midnight for Charlie Bone a 3 out of 5. I gave Charlie Bone and the Time Twister, I think, a 3.5 out of 5. So I did think there was a nice little step up from the first one when I read the sequel. And hopefully that trend continues and they only get better and better. But I just haven't been loving them as much as I remember loving them as a kid. But I have this problem where once I've started a series, I don't want to stop midway through. Like I have to finish what I've started. And so I'm going to keep going and I'm going to read book number 3, and hopefully they just keep getting better from here. So that is Charlie Bone and the Blue Boa. Next up, we have a book by Joe Hill. Joe Hill is another author whose works I'm trying to complete in 2026. I'm trying to read all of his books. I'm off to a pretty good start. I read Nosferatu back in December. I read Strange Weather last month in March. And now I'm going to read Heart Shaped Box, which is his debut novel that he released in 2007. This is another book. I really don't know what it's about, but at this point, I've read 4 Joe Hill books, I believe, and his quality of writing is so amazing that I'll pick up anything with his name on it and check it out. And so Heart Shaped Box is going to be the next on the list. And I'm excited to get into it. I always love reading someone's debut novel after reading a bunch of their other books, like Carrie by Stephen King. I read that book way later in my life than other Stephen King books. So it was nice to go back to the beginning and see like how they've grown as a writer since that initial novel. So having read some of his later novels recently, I'm excited to revisit his very first book and see how he's grown as a writer. So that is Heart Shaped Box. And then next up, we have a book that I've been meaning to read for a couple months. I've mentioned it in a couple TBR videos, but unfortunately, I picked up the wrong version of it a couple months ago, and now I finally have a physical copy of it. And so this is the month I'm 100% going to read this book, and that is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This is another one of those books. I don't know anything about the plot, but Stephen Graham Jones is an author that I've heard a lot about in the online like Reddits about horror, and from a lot of YouTubers that I like to watch. They say a lot of great things about his writing. I know his book, the Buffalo Hunter is one that came out kind of recently, I think, that had a lot of great reviews. And so I decided to start with The Only Good Indians. This will be my first Stephen Graham Jones book, and hopefully I love it and I can check out some more of his works. But that is a book that I'm finally going to get to, even though I've been saying I'm going to for the last couple months. So we have one more physical book that I'm going to read, and this is my nostalgia pick. Every month I do a nostalgia read where I go back and revisit something from my childhood. Originally, I was going to do a really classy pick. I was going to do Flowers for Algernon, but then yesterday at work, I was talking to some of my coworkers about Twilight, and for some reason, it just really made me want to go back and reread this book. So I am going to be reading Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. I read this book for the first time when I was in middle school. I believe I was in 6th grade, so I was 11 years old, and that was now 20 years ago. So it's been 20 years since I've read Twilight, and I don't know why, but I'm super pumped to go back and reread this. I don't know if I'm going to like it a lot. I'm hoping I do, but worst case scenario, I'm just going to be miserable throughout it. But something tells me I'm going to at least get some sense of satisfaction out of revisiting this book. My fiance and I do a Twilight marathon every single year for the last 5 years, where we go back and rewatch all 5 of the Twilight movies. It's one of her favorite things of all time. And so I kind of just suffer through it every year. And this time I decided to double down and I'm going to read the whole book series, hopefully, unless I just am so miserable that I don't want to read the other 3. But as I said earlier, once I start a series, I have to finish it. And so I'm opening a can of worms by reading Twilight. But I have high hopes. I think I'm going to have a good time. So that is going to be my nostalgia pick for the month. And then I have 3 audiobooks lined up that I want to listen to. The first one is my book club's book pick of the month. My fiance chose this book. It is called Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. R.F. Kuang is an author that I've never read before, but I've heard from so many different people that her writing is amazing. I know there's the Poppy War trilogy, I think it is, that's really popular by her. And there's another book that people talk about all the time that I cannot remember off the top of my head. I'll put a picture of it up on the screen here. But I've just heard R.F. Kuang is amazing. This will be my first R.F. Kuang book. And my fiance described it to me as sort of like a Dante's Inferno ish sort of story. So that has me really excited because I love Dante's Inferno a lot. It's one of my favorite, like, ancient stories. So I'm excited to get into Catabasis and see if R.F. Kuang is going to be one of my new favorites. And then another book that I'm going to read or listen to in audiobook form is Slewfoot by Brahm. A few months ago, I read, I think it was back in January, I read The Child Thief by Brahm. It was like a dark Peter Pan inspired story, and it was really, really solid. I enjoyed it a lot. And so I said, I want to check out some more Brahm books later in the year. And so when I was kind of looking through my Libby app, I found this one was available, and I was like, I'm going to check out Slewfoot. My fiance, I brought her up a lot this video. She influences a lot of my reading habits, but she has read all of Brahm's books, and she said that Slewfoot is incredible. So that has me really pumped. And it's another one. I'm not going to look up anything about it. I'm just going to go in and hopefully I love it. So that is audiobook number 2 for the month. And then the final one that I have planned is to read Dune Messiah. Last month in April, I listened to the Dune audiobook. That was my third time reading Dune, but it was my first time experiencing the audiobook version. And it was just incredible. It's one of my favorite books of all time. The audiobook was great. It had such high production value. And so I'm hoping the audiobook for Dune Messiah is the same. Dune Messiah is actually a book that I wanted to reread this year. I posted a video back at the beginning of the year about 8 books that I want to reread in 2026. And Dune Messiah was really high up on that list because we have the new the film adaptation coming out at the end of the year, Dune Part 3, which is a adaptation of this book. So I'm really, really excited to get into it, and I hope I love it. So that is my TBR for May. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Let me know down in the comments below if you love any of them, hate any of them, and let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Christian. This is the Endless TBR, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Peace.